It's Red Wing Iron Ranger Day here at Wyatt and Dad Cobbler Company, and this is part 2 of our series on the Red Wing Iron Rangers. Now in part 1, we did a little bit of a boot history behind the influences and how these boots became so iconic. You can check that video out here, but today in part 2, Cobbler Tobias and Cobbler Tony are going to be recrafting 2 different pair of Red Wing Iron Rangers. So what are you going to be doing to this pair of Iron Rangers, Toby?
Actually, I was given pretty free range with these, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to just completely overhaul.
You know what? For this video, since you guys are both going to be doing 2 different things, you're going to go to our Durham location, you're going to go to our Winston-Salem location. They're not going to get to know either one's ideas behind these boots, and we'll see what these 2 cobblers can come up with. So, get out of here.
Whoa.
No.
What if we come up with the exact same thing?
Well, you guys aren't very creative then, my lumberjacked friends. So, stay tuned for the 2 different sets of Red Wing Iron Ranger full recrafts after this montage. All right, so we've got Cobbler Tobias out of here. He's off doing that other pair. I want to see what your vision is for your pair of Iron Rangers in this beautiful charcoal color. Let's rip these things apart. I want to see what you've got under the hood of these Iron Rangers.
So we're going to put a little solvent down on here on the welt so it can soak down into the sole, and that will lessen the risk of me cutting my boot and allow me to slide my knife through a little bit better. By being gentle and not cutting any of the upper, now when I go to pull this off, see, I'm destroying the cork layer that's in here, but I didn't put any stress on the upper of the boot, taking it apart, whereas your cement-on constructions are glued to the boot, glued to the upper, and that stress of pulling that sole off, it puts a strain on the boot, so you can't really do them as many times. So what I've got to do here is on a 270 welt boot or shoe, the heel seat area is nailed down with like 1,000 little small tacks. So I've got to get all those tacks out so that I can get everything turned up to be able to do the 360 welt.
All right.
And prep the boot for the conversion. So that's what I'm doing right now. It's very time consuming and tedious to just sit here and pull all this stuff apart.
Ooh, time consuming. I have a short attention span, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to head over to go see what Cobbler Tobias has got going on in Durham with that other pair of Iron Rangers, while Tony sits here and does all that tedious work. So good luck with that. We'll come back and check in on your storm well. Let's head on over to see what Cobbler Tobias has got going on. All right, so we're here in... This isn't... Durham. So Tony's probably not tied up in welting leather somewhere. He's fine. What do you have planned for us in this pair of Amber Harness Iron Rangers?
So these are a friend of yours, are they not? Is someone that was in the service with you?
Yep, we're in the Marines together.
He really liked the way that they look already as is. These are barely been worn. They got a little bit of character to them just where he's been wearing them around, but other than that, he said, you know, he kind of likes that style. So I don't want to deviate too far away from that. One thing that I have in mind that I'm kind of excited about is I'm going to try to take this boot from like a middle grade, you know, boot to more of a higher end boot. So I'm going to add some things to make it a little bit more structurally sound and just kind of improve what I think can be improved on this type of boot. But yeah, so I'm excited to get into it. As you can see, like the cork hasn't been worn down or anything. He had very little wear on this. I am going to be taking, because I'm re-welting it, I do have to take all of that out. So I'm going to be removing all of that. I'm going to give a reinforcement in that waist area because we see these things break over time.
Okay, so in order to get these welts off, they're put on with a chain stitch. So all you got to do is get a couple of these loops loose. You can go as far as you want, but you see how they just kind of pop over top of each other. And then you can grab your welt and it pulls right off. Like that. What you want to do is from the inside, get you a pull on there, and you can pull your string out.
So if you notice through this process, I don't have tape on my fingers because I've got cobbler's hands. Now some people, they might have a little bit of tape while they're doing a pair of Iron Rangers.
He said that about me? Well, you know, if I only welted shoes for videos, I wouldn't have to worry about taping my fingers either. But us people that actually have to do real work around here, that stuff hurts over time. So I'm gonna go ahead and protect these things because these are my money makers.
So around the toe, the storm welt is more difficult to stitch because of the way that ridge right there gives it rigidity, and so it doesn't just easily curve around the toe. So when you pull your stitches in, you always want to do this, but especially around the toe and around the heel. See how I'm pulling the stitch right here? I'll be pulling that little two pieces I put together, and then I want to give it a good cinch so it pulls it up tight against the boot, and that way we don't have a gap after we're done with everything.
All right, so look, there's going to be a lot of reinforcement coming our way.
Yeah, so I'm going to put this real thick piece of JR leather just right over top of that 3-ribbed metal steel shank, and we'll sand it and shape it to more of a hump.
Which is that construction kind of like I have in my Knicks boots, and you see in the whites and stuff.
They don't have the metal shank in there. They go with just stacks of leather. So we're just kind of imitating that a little bit. This will add a little bit as far as making it a little bit stiffer too, but not much. It's more going to be for an aesthetic thing. But additionally, we're going to be removing this original heel seat because it's more of a paper board, and we're going to replace it with a thicker leather. This is actually JR leather as well.
It's the JR upgrade.
And we're making it starting out real wide so that we can then taper it down and give it more of a logger type look. I think that should be really cool. So
yeah, I mean, this gives you a lot more flexibility on giving it a little bit more profile without going with a full 360 welt.
Exactly. After that, we'll cork fill it. We'll put new cork in, and we'll be good to go. Start putting the sole back on.
Alright, so I'm putting a little lube on the sole here because this is rubber and it's extremely thick. So it's going to have a lot of resistance trying to go around the stitcher. So a little bit of this is basically just Bic 4 conditioner. That way if it gets on my leather it's not hurting anything. And that'll help the machine slide and get my stitches a little more even.
Hold it. This is ridiculous. What kind of a heel are you doing on this? I mean, that's
It's a little off.
It's
right?
it looks a little
got a really
off.
big heel base and a really tiny heel.
You got to tell us what you're
I'm
doing.
done. This is it.
He's gonna.
It's a new trend I'm starting.
Oh, okay.
No,
baby heel.
Well, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding kind of more of like a logger scoop to it, and you start on this base and you kind of bring that
That's
angle
a
down to meet
scoop.
it. So yeah, similar to like what you would see on like a White's boots
Right.
or like some of these other work boots that have that nice scoop to it. So you
Okay.
start real wide and then you sand that down into a nice scoop. I've never actually personally done this on an Iron Ranger, so I'm hoping it turns out just okay.
All right, we are done with the Red Wing Iron Ranger recrafts. We had 2 boots, 2 different cobblers with 1 quintessential Iron Ranger style, and man, these could not have come out more beautiful and more different. Not just from each other, but from the original look of this Iron Ranger. So I'm not even gonna gush anymore because I'm glowing at the way these 2 things come out. I just wanna start with you, Tony. Like, what were your thoughts? Give us a recap, what you did to this boot.
All right, so these are my own personal boots, and I personally like a really thick midsole. It gives me a lot of stability, and standing all day, working on shoes. If I go out doing stuff outside, I just love the extra stability of the double midsole. And so in this one, in my last one, I did a leather midsole with a thin rubber midsole to get that stability. This time I went with a double leather midsole. And then instead of using the original 430 sole that came on the shoe, I switched over to the Vibram corded 427 sole and heel. Because we've had such tremendous results from it from customers who've come back and said how durable they were, how much longer they were getting out of this sole. So I'm really excited to give it a try, test out its snow capabilities and things of that nature. So that's what I chose to do. I also wanted to go with a different welt, and we get a lot of requests for the split welt, like we're doing on this boot here. So instead of going split welt, even though I love the split welt, I said, well, on mine, I'm going to try the storm welt just to see, and you can see a little bit of the difference in the way that the rim goes around.
Yeah, it just has a slimmer profile while still having that little bit of an edge that comes up. And in all reality, when I'm looking at it, this actually sits better on the boot than that
than the split
split welt, because it just sits so much higher, so you can see it on these seams a little bit different. So that's just like a quick difference I can tell.
Just a different look, and that's what I wanted to go for. I went with an all natural and then switched over to leather laces. I went with a red top stitch because I like red. I went with a red bottom stitch because I thought the red bottom stitch would look really cool against the black sole, and I think it does. So that was mine. I'm really excited to try these on and see how this extra double midsole comes out and everything. But you know, I love the way I came out with my boot and everything, but I'm going to tell you what, man. I'm sitting here looking at what Tobias did, and I'm over here drooling, man. I'm like about ready to go buy me another pair of Iron Rangers
just to do this
job right here.
I've been talking. I'm probably going to get every pair of Red Wings I've got converted to this look, but I'm going to let Tobias tell us what he did to this Iron Ranger.
So we did a whole lot, as you saw during the process, but look at the way that these things turned out. I had a picture for it, but once I saw it finalized, I was like, oh, it's better than I imagined it would. So the owner of these boots liked the way that they looked originally, and so we didn't want to change too much on that. We wanted to do some subtle changes, so we kept a lot of like the same color welting, the same color stitching, and I didn't want to go super thick because that's not what he was looking for. So we did also go with that corded sole on there. We did it in a half sole fashion, and I built up that shank to give it that little bit more round sturdiness. And what we did is we did a kind of like a logger type scooped heel with a tall heel block. And man, that right there I think is what makes this build.
And it looks like this is the way the boot came. That's one thing that I noticed about it. While you didn't change a lot with like the general aesthetics of it, this boot looks like it was manufactured this way, which is really interesting. A lot of people, maybe they want to get their boots recrafted, they want something a little bit different, but they're not wanting to take it so starkly different than the original, but they don't really know what to do there, so they'll just stick with the way that they originally had it. So this is a cool example of being able to keep it looking like this is the way the boot is supposed to be, the way it came, but it is a completely different boot than it came before.
I mean, the Red Wing Iron Rangers and pretty much all of their heritage line is already just such a fantastic made boot. They really do a really good job of making it easy to repair, easy to fix and customize and upgrade. And there wasn't much that I had to upgrade on the boot. It already had a nice steel shank in there, so it offers plenty of support, and they break in, they're super comfortable. So we just wanted to change it up just a little bit, but keep them. And man, I got just super stoked about the way that these came out.
One thing I like about Tobias that you did was we've done the logger heel on some other boot builds that we've done, but we used the original heel seat, which was tucked really tight. And then we've done rebuilds where we've done the 360 welt, which brought the heel way out, and we did it. But on this one, you did the 270 welt, and then you did a new heel seat and extended it back a little bit and a little bit wider, but not as wide as a new welt.
Yeah.
And obviously not as narrow as the original heel seat. And man, I just think that just
ties
that right
it in,
there,
that ties it in.
It gives that
look
heel a
together.
nice shelf
Yeah.
for it to sit on.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what it really
it's
looks
almost
like
like
to
a
me.
spur shelf that you would find on like a cowboy boot, which is really cool. Because
It's gorgeous, man.
You know, similar to when you have a 360 welted boot and you want to do that kind of logger scoop, you have to have that kind of that ledge, that lip around there.
Right.
Where with the 270 welt, you can kind of get it nice and tight and have that real like tight scoop.
And it's thinner. If you look at this, you see how you've got a big lip, you know, here, so that you don't get into your welt stitches and stuff like that. Whereas this one, you've got
You can come up right up to
it's
it.
a nice swoop up. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's really.
And it's interesting too, you know, one thing that we notice about the Iron Ranger as compared to like the Blacksmith or different ones is it does have this like scoop down, and now having this back scoop, it kind of is a nice little cool
ties in
complement to the boot.
Yeah.
Not even intentional, but it just helps with that shape of the boot. And
I'm
it
telling
just,
you, man, as much as I like my build, I got to go buy me another pair of Iron Rangers so I can do that build, man. I love
That's
that
the one thing
build.
I do like about anything pretty much Goodyear welted is just the availability to customize it, to build it
Highly
however
versatile.
you want to, whether you want to throw on a wedge sole, different styles of welts, or however you want to go about doing it. Having a Goodyear welted, you know, heritage style boot is just an advantage for that kind of thing. So.
Well, man, these things came out beautiful. If you've got a pair of Iron Rangers and you want something truly unique, maybe keep it similar, maybe go completely different, White and Dad Cobbler Company can do it for you. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not. Thank you to all our subscribers. We'll see you guys on the next video.